I want to say that if you want to have some benefits here on the channel and help with the continuation of the Dragon Ball Hakai manga, you can do so through our Patreon. For a very small price, you can already have some exclusive benefits here on the channel, and you will also collaborate for the continuation of Goku's story as a god of destruction. Our Patreon link is in the video description. Go check it out later to find out more. All the members of Team 4 flew very high in the sky, at such altitude that only the clouds could be seen below them. They all flew towards the center of the planet, where they had to arrive to move to the next stage. At that moment they realized something. Broly, Kaba, and Vegeta don't have the Dragon Balls needed to pass. Kaba and Vegeta were unable to take the orbs from the enemies they faced, as Frieza and Cooler fled before the fight was over. And when they beat the 3 women from Universe 2, they were so impatient that they just threw them too far and didn't go after them. That is, they only have the orbs, but they were given to them at the beginning of the tournament. And in Broly's case, he managed to get rid of the orb that Majikayo had, but Goku gave his orb to Jiren after his defeat. That means Broly only has 1 orb now. Frost says that he, Gohan, and Piccolo defeated 2 Universe 2 warriors. He wanted to take the Dragon Balls from them as a prevention, but Piccolo and Gohan said that they already had the required amount of orbs to pass, so it was not necessary to take the orbs who were with them. Piccolo and Gohan justified their decision by saying that they trusted every member of their team to be able to get the orbs on their own merit, and still think so. Frost says they're 2 idiots. This is a competition. That kind of morality shouldn't apply there. But for everyone's happiness, he thought it might happen. And so when he defeated Shansa, Kamisaras, and Damon from Universe 4, he took the orbs from all of them in case the party members missed it. That was his job, to get as many group members as possible to move to the next stage. To pass, he will use the orb he took from Derkori when he knocked her out after meeting her again. Hit gives the Dragon Balls to Vegeta, Broly, and Kaba, and takes an orb for him. Vegeta doesn't want to accept it. He doesn't like the idea of being classified just because Hit gave him the orb. But Kaba argues that accepting those orbs is not a lack of merit. After all, they actually deserve those orbs as they defeated Universe 2's trio of warriors. As they didn't take the Dragon Balls from them, they can accept these orbs given by Hit as if they were the ones they didn't take from them. Strangely, that logic used by Kaba is accepted by Vegeta. The Prince of the Saiyans says that it still doesn't seem worthy of him. But there is a point in what Kaba is saying. Goku says that if everything is okay and everyone has the required amount of orbs to pass, they just need to arrive at the destiny. After a few minutes of travel, they finally reach the center of the planet, and lowering the altitude they can see a large tower. That was certainly the meeting place. They fly towards the tower, but many energy shots are made towards them. They dodge all the shots, and then they see the authors of those shots are the participants of Team 2, Paparoni, Panchia, Bolarator, Koitsukai, Majikayo, Napapa, Obni, Lubalt, Meriob, and Dium. The 10 warriors of Team 2 are all gathered. Goku asks what they want. Paparoni replies that they need Dragon Balls to move on to the next step, and for that they will take Team 4's orbs. Piccolo says that he has already imagined that something like this would happen. The losers would gather in the center to, as a last hope, take the orbs of those who are close to completing the journey. Paparoni doesn't like Piccolo's words, so he says, "Who are you calling a loser, Green Man? I will teach you all a lesson. Prepare to behold the power of Aniraza once more." But before Paparoni could even do anything, Hit using the time skip got to the Team 2 participant and landed a blow that immediately knocked him out, leaving everyone in awe. Goku complains, "Hey Hit, why did you do that? Catching people off guard like that is not cool." But the Universe 6 assassin replies, "Don't be an idiot. We don't want more trouble than necessary. With that man out of the way, they won't be able to become that giant monster." Very angry, Panchia, Koitsukai, and Bellator make a fusion, becoming Koichirator, and after doing so, they go towards Hit to attack. But before reaching Hit, Koichirator is hit by a double energy attack in the center of the body. This attack was made by Gohan and Piccolo, who combined Maken Kosapo and Masenko. After that, Gohan says, "From now on, we'll all fight as a real team." Frost, seeing something that surprises him, warns the others, "Hey, look around us!" At that moment, the members of Team 4 notice the group of enemies are approaching from all sides. Seeing this, Caulifla says, "Looks like those idiots who didn't get the orbs are all going to focus on us." Piccolo says, "It's natural that they would do that. We're the ones with the most variety of orbs, after all." But Vegeta gets really mad about it, and he transforms into Super Saiyan Blue. He says, "Those damn vultures! I'm tired of these games! I want everyone to go to hell!" Goku, seeing Vegeta transform, also transforms into Super Saiyan Blue, as he says with an excited smile on his face, Vegeta is right. Since there are so many, we don't need to save so much power. Let's break it down. At this point, everyone decides to use transformations too. Caulifla and Kaba transform into Super Saiyan 2. Kale transforms into a legendary Super Saiyan. Broly transforms into a Kari form. Frost uses the form with 100% unleashed power. Gohan uses ultimate form. Piccolo uses his form with the potential released. And Hit unleashes more power in an energy aura. Team 4 is now prepared for this great, desperate battle to come. With many enemies coming from all directions, Team 4's warriors spread out, each heading in a different direction to face a group of enemies. Ganos flies towards Goku at full speed. He shouts saying that this time he will win, but Goku, saying he doesn't have time to pay attention to him this time, lands a powerful punch on the Universe 4 warrior, who's very surprised by the Saiyan's power and is thrown far away. After that, Vegeta, coming towards Goku while accumulating energy in his hands, shouts for the rival to get out of his way, and then fires the attack. Goku, scared, does as Vegeta says, moving out of the way of the attack with an instant transmission. Vegeta's attacks hit Obuni, who was coming up behind the protagonist to attack him. Teleporting to Vegeta's side, Goku thanks him, but he says he wasn't taking any real risk there. Vegeta tells him to shut up and just thank him for the help. Bluebolt from Universe 10 flies towards Piccolo. He wants another rematch. Piccolo flies towards him as well. The two clash in the sky and exchange blows, but this time it's totally different. Bluebolt is being completely pressured and asks why this is happening and why Piccolo is so strong this time. The Namekian replies that it's simple. The last time he was a long way from using his full power, and after saying that, Piccolo lands a stronger blow on Bluebolt that knocks him out at the same moment. After that, he notices someone approaching him from behind. It's Diem, the bird warrior also from Universe 10. But before Diem could attack Piccolo, Gohan came by his side and hit a flying shot at the unfortunate, who fainted with a kick and was gone thrown far away. After that, they saw Napapa coming towards them flying. Both fired at the same time an energy attack that hit and knocked out the pink warrior. Meanwhile, Sankaku and Su-Rose attacked Kaba, who blocked both their attacks, but in a moment he's hit by a double attack from the two that launches him down, making him fall from the sky towards the forest. But Kaba manages to stop the fall before crashing into the trees. The two women, not intending to give him time to recover, fly towards him, but before they reach the boy, Caulifla comes flying towards them, landing a blow that sends them both flying. After doing so, she goes to Kaba's side and says that she will help him just this once. The two women from Universe 2, already recovered from Caulifla's blow, fly towards them. Kaba and Caulifla also fly towards them, and then they find themselves initiating an exchange of blows. The two Saiyans sure have the full advantage against the warriors of love, landing many attacks on them. While fighting, Kaba asks Caulifla why she isn't together with Kale this time. Caulifla replies that Kale has already made a new friend to fight. Koichia Raider attacks Broly with his metallic balls, but the legendary Super Saiyan, despite receiving the robot's attack directly on his head, barely feels the blow, scaring the machine. After that, Broly takes the robot's metallic hand and spins it many times in the air. After doing this, he launches the robot into the air. Meanwhile, Kale, who is nearby, accumulates energy in her hands and then launches a powerful attack at Koichia Raider, who is hit by the legendary Super Saiyan's attack and is launched so high that he can no longer be seen by them. After that, Broly and Kale smile at each other, an ironically childish and innocent smile for someone who has just done what they did. Frost is fighting Gimizu, who is at a total disadvantage, but the Yard Rat reacts and, using the instant transmission, evades a blow from Frost and counterattacks. After doing so, he creates several clones of his body. Frost, annoyed, fires energy lasers from all of his fingers at the Gimizu clones, but none of those clones were real, and in fact the real Gimizu appears behind him to hit him with a kick, but Frost smiles. He's been waiting for that, and then he grabs the Yard Rat's leg with his tail, surprising the Universe 2 warrior. With Gimizu trapped by his tail, Frost punishes the Yard Rat with numerous blows. But as this happens, Hamira, who is far below them, hiding in one of the trees in the forest, takes aim at Frost to fire an energy blast at him. But suddenly is hit by a blow to the neck and then he passes out. Who attacks Hamira was hit. He had noticed the sniper hiding in the place and took advantage of his distraction with Frost and Gimizu's fight to attack him off guard. It didn't take long for the battle to be over, and Team 4's warriors managed to defeat every other participant on the planet who didn't get the orbs needed to advance in the competition. After doing so, the warriors returned to their power base, and then headed towards the tower at the center of the planet, leaving the losers scattered across the region. Arriving close to the tower, they noticed that around the building there are platforms in a circular shape, and on each platform there is space for 5 people. The group split in 2 and climbed onto the platforms. When they did, they teleported to another place. Suddenly, they were in a large hall. In this hall, there was a floating platform where the Xenos throne, the Xenos guards, and Daishinkan were. On other floating platforms were the 4 gods of destruction, already classified: Likir, Arak, Jin, and Iwan. In the center of this place, below everyone else, were the other 10 participants who had passed the first stage of the tournament. The other 10 warriors were classified were Frieza, Cooler, Jiren, Topo, Dispo, Bergamo, Lavender, Basil, Ribrianne, and Jimizu. Seeing Jimizu among the winners, Frost is very surprised. He remembers defeating the Yard Rat when Team 4 was attacked by everyone a short time ago, but Jimizu explains that he actually faked his defeat, and when no one was watching, he took the orb from another participant defeated by Team 4. With the orb he got from someone else on his own team, he managed to pass. It wasn't the most dignified strategy, but it was the best he could do. Frost smiles. He approves of what Jimizu did. He's right, the smartest are the ones who survive in the end. But in the next stage, he will make sure that Jimizu is not even in a position to cheat. The Yard Rat warrior is a little frightened by this threat. But Daishinkan interrupts the two participants' futile conversation. He says that now that everyone is there, they can start talking about the next stage. Goku, very anxious, thanks the Grand Priest and says he can't wait to start fighting again. Daishinkan praises the Saiyan's enthusiasm and says it's good that he thinks like that. After all, he's going to face many opponents now. The statement leaves Goku confused. How is he going to face many opponents? The Daishinkan begins to explain. He says, the next stage of the tournament will be a scoring competition. At this stage, all participants will need to score as much as possible. And among the 20 who will participate, the 12 with the most points will move on to the next level. Piccolo asks the Grand Priest to further explain how it would work. How exactly would they be able to accumulate points? The Daishinkan explains. At this point, the angels are removing from Planet Arena all the disqualified participants that are there. They will be taken to a place where they can watch the event, just like the other gods who came. And now, instead of being occupied only by mortal participants, the planet will be occupied by millions of androids created especially for this competition. That information surprises everyone. Will they face androids? Gohan asks what kind of androids are these? Are they like number 17 and number 18 from Universe 7? The Daishinkan replies, yes. They may be similar to 17 and 18 in some senses, as they are artificial life forms with a human appearance. But the difference is that the source used to create these machines is not technology, but magic. These androids were created by the Super Dragon Balls. They were created for the sole purpose of being used in this tournament. Gohan asks how these androids relate to the participants' scores. Daishinkan explains in detail. Well, I'll explain. Right now, tens of millions of androids are being scattered all over Planet Arena. These androids have a very varied level of power. There are androids with a very low level of power compared to your power, but there are some extremely powerful androids. Each of these androids will be worth a certain amount of points, and the points ranking is done according to their power level. That is, weaker androids will be worth a very low number of points, while stronger androids will be worth a large amount of points. Your mission is to travel around Planet Arena, finding these androids and destroying as many as you can. Every time one of these machines is destroyed, their value will be added to your total score. Frieza complains about these rules. It seems too boring to travel around the planet, destroying insignificant robots. But Daishinkan disagrees and warns. As I said before, the fighting power of these androids is extremely varied. The weakest robots won't really be a problem for warriors like you. You could destroy many of them in a few seconds, but those at the higher levels can certainly be a big challenge. Toppo asks the Grand Priest to explain the average points that we'll get for each android level. Daishinkan does as he asks. Well, the score for each android will vary between 1 point and 500,000 points. As I said, the weaker an android is, the less points the participant will receive for defeating it. And the stronger it is, the more points it will be worth. The difference between the weakest and strongest android is absolutely astronomical. Among all these androids, there are 3 that are especially powerful. Facing them will be a great challenge for any of you, even the most powerful. Upon hearing the last piece of information, most participants get very tense. But some warriors are excited about this, like Goku, who says it would be a very interesting fight. Daishinkan raises both hands, and then an aura of magical energy quickly surges around the participants and then disappears. Caulifla, suspicious, asks what he did. The Grand Priest explains, at that moment I used a magic power that will give you a special ability that will allow you to see the score an android is worth the moment you look at it. That is, every time you look at an android, you will instantly know the score you will get if you defeat him. But not only that, you will also be able to detect their presence with your vision, even if they are at a distance. This will make it easier for you to find them on such a huge planet. In addition, you will also have your scores in real time in your views. In short, you will have in your views complete information about everything you need to know about this game. Frieza comments that this magical ability should function as a tracker they use in their army. Just as trackers detect opponents' fighting power and detects them from a distance, the ability throws them to track androids and see the score. The difference is that detection will take place in their minds, not by a machine. Daishinkan says he doesn't know about these trackers, but yes, that's how this skill works, and he adds that whenever they can see their current score, they can change strategies during the game whenever they see fit. After saying this, the Grand Priest adds more information by saying, the androids are instructed not to attack you unless you appear to want to start a fight, which means you don't have to worry about surprise attacks. You will have the option, when you see the androids, to decide whether or not it is worth starting a fight. Gohan notes that with these rules, they are free to define a scoring strategy, and the Daishinkan confirms. Very well observed, Mr. Gohan. That's exactly it. You'll be able to decide which strategy to follow during the game. You can choose to eliminate dozens, hundreds or thousands of weaker androids to get a high score, or you can choose to go directly to a more powerful android and get a higher score with just one fight. On the other hand, if you feel that the current score is too low, you can choose to go after stronger enemies to increase your score. Also, in case you are satisfied with the current number of points, you can choose to defeat weaker enemies to increase the score more smoothly. The strategy that each of you will follow will depend on many things, including the power level of you or the group. When he says the word group, Daishinkan remembers something else, so he adds, speaking of group, there's another thing that's important to mention. In case you defeat an enemy in a group, the score that enemy is worth will be divided equally among the group members. That is, let's use as an example that 2 warriors destroy an android worth 100 points, in which case each warrior will receive 50 points. If 4 warriors do this, the score for each will be 25 points and so on. That way, weaker warriors who want to gain more points by defeating a more powerful enemy will have the option to fight as a team. Hearing that information, Bergamo, Lavender and Basil are very happy. After all, they love to fight as a team. Piccolo also liked those rules. It's a type of competition that allows competitors to create and adapt their strategies according to each one's need. But Goku only wants to know one thing: where to find the strongest guys. He asks the Daishinkan that. The Grand Priest replies he won't reveal anyone's exact position. Goku will have to search the planet for them. This saddens the Saiyan, but he knows he's going to find these guys one way or another. Daishinkan adds one more rule. Another important rule is that at this stage of the tournament, the participants must not fight each other. Your only opponents are the androids. Any participant who attacks another participant will be disqualified all the same. After that, the Grand Priest adds the last information. Well, now for a final piece of information. The second stage of the tournament will have a time limit of 1 hour, which means you have 1 hour to get as much of a score as you can. With the power that I have given you, you will be able to see the location of enemies, the points that each of them is worth your score. You will also be able to see a timer in real life. Hearing that, Goku gets completely scared and then he complains, "What? You mean we only have 1 hour? But will I have time to find these strong guys?" Daishinkan, intending to end that conversation, says, "Well, now all the rules are explained. I believe there is no more doubt. It's time to start the second stage of the new Tournament of Power. I wish you all good luck." Daishinkan makes a motion with his hands, and then all 20 participants disappear from that place. Suddenly, all the members of Team 4 are on the outside of the planet again. It looks like the game has already started. Goku notices something strange in his vision. He's seeing on one side a stopwatch that has just started. On the other side, he sees the number 0, and suddenly, many points start to appear, and each of these points has a different number. The Saiyan complains, "Oh man, a lot of things started to appear in my vision. It's a lot of information. What an unpleasant thing." Gohan explains, "It's like the Grand Priest explained. This timer is keeping track of the time we've left until the end of the competition. The number 0 is our score, and these little points and numbers are respectively the closest android, and the number of points each of them is worth if we beat them." Frost asks the group what style of tactics they want to follow at this stage. Gohan says that there are many tactics they can use. The safest tactics are to face medium and low enemy levels, individually, or face more powerful enemies in a group. These are the 2 ways to earn points faster without having to take too much risk. Vegeta says these plans are all nonsense. They must go after the strongest and challenge them. That way they can guarantee the classification. But Piccolo disagrees with Vegeta. He says that if they face 2 powerful warriors unaided, they risk expending too much energy or acquiring more wounds. They try to fight individually in the first stage of the tournament, and the only results in bad things. The best they can do is act in a group. He says he doesn't really like working in a team, but Piccolo has a point. Maybe it's better to do it this time. But Goku protests. How is he going to find the strongest guys like that? He wants to fight them. Caulifla agrees. She wants to test her limits too. What fun is a tournament of power if she can't use all her power? Gohan tells Goku it's okay. They can look for strong enemies, but they must stay together and fight together. This can be an effective way to gain points faster. They don't necessarily need to fight together, but they should fight not too far apart from each other, so they don't get separated and have the possibility to help someone who is in difficulty. Although some of them don't like it, they all agree with this idea. Vegeta says he's up for it. He doesn't mind fighting next to them, but he won't accept that they interfere in his fight. Everyone agrees to these terms. It's the best thing they can do to keep the team together. Suddenly, everyone is scared when a supernova comes towards them. The members of Team 4 immediately need to flee from where they are, and the attack crashes into the ground and creates a huge explosion in that region. Caulifla, surprised and annoyed, asks who attacked them. The android shouldn't attack them, right? But whoever did that was Frieza. Seeing who attacked, Piccolo asks Frieza what he thinks he's doing by attacking them like that. Participants are not allowed to attack each other at this stage. They must only fight the androids. But Frieza, with a cynical smile on his face, asks for forgiveness and justifies his act. Please forgive me. What just happened? It's just that I ended up tracking some enemies in that direction and launched an attack. But I didn't see you were there. I must have misdirected the attack. I'm still getting used to using this skill, so I'm a little confused. Vegeta, annoyed, says, "Stop pretending, Frieza. You were trying to hurt us. Admit it at once." Frost, looking at Frieza, says, "Hey Frieza, don't think I've forgotten what you did to me in the first tournament. I will still have the opportunity to take revenge." Frieza says he doesn't have time to waste with amateurs. He has better things to do. Frost gets very angry and intends to give an answer, but they stop arguing when they see a group of androids approaching. By looking at them, participants were able to measure their level. Their scores ranged from 1 point to 10 points. Disdaining enemies, Frieza says, "They're just worms." Frieza blows and then a current of strong air hits the android and blows them all. Frieza's scores, which was previously 0, is now 55. This disappoints the Emperor, who had expected a little more. Cooler, who wasn't far away, yelled at Frieza as he watched something from the sky, and it formed a supernova. Cooler says, "Hey Frieza, there's some worms in that direction." Cooler launches the supernova towards a mountain. The mountain completely explodes, and all enemies that could have been there are sure to have died. After doing so, he says, "Only 320 points? What a joke." Frieza calls his brother, saying, "Come, my brother, let's look for stronger enemies. There's nothing worthwhile in this place." Frieza and Cooler fly out of there. Hit agrees with them and says, "They're right, we should start looking for enemies too." Team 4 also started to encounter many enemies. As they traveled around the planet, they decided to attack different types of androids to measure the average power of each of them, so they could understand what to expect from each scoring level. Team 4's warriors searched for the android individually or in pairs, but despite this, they tried not to stray too far from each other. Seeing a group of dozens of androids coming towards him, Frost measured their power and saw that it varied between 1 and 10 points, saying that they were just trash. Frost created a large globe of energy and fired at them, destroying them all at once. His score went to 211 points. Kaba and Caulifla also headed towards a group of androids whose power ranged between 10 and 50 units, and realizing the Saiyans' fighting intent, the machine surrounded them. But the two destroyed each of the robots with a single attack. It was even boring for them. At the end of that real run, they got about 150 points each. Vegeta, seeing a group of enemies, also calculates their power. The points range from 50 to 100 points. Seeing that, he comments, "Interesting. Those guys have a power level close to Frieza's when we fought him on Namek. A few years ago, I would have found these enemies completely terrifying, but now they're just trash." Vegeta points his hands at them and fires a big bang attack. The energy explodes in their midst and instantly destroys them all, as if they were just insects. He scores 657 units. Goku is flying over a mountain when he sees 5 enemies, and their score ranges from 100 to 300 units. He flies towards them to fight. Combat begins and Goku realizes that their power level is close to the power of the androids when they attacked Earth. But that's not a big deal for him these days, so he quickly destroys all opponents, even fighting in base form. Goku has 903 points. Gohan and Piccolo fight in the sky against a sextet of androids, each of them faced with 3 enemies, and both in base form. The score each android was worth ranged from 300 to 500. Piccolo notices that these androids' power was similar to Cell's power, and Gohan agrees. He remembers that power very well. Piccolo manages to quickly destroy all 3 opponents. Gohan could defeat the 3 of them in base form, but not wanting to take too long to not have to make Piccolo wait, he transforms into Super Saiyan. After doing so, the Earthling Saiyan destroys all androids quickly. Piccolo now has 1,000 points, while Gohan has 1,213. Kale and Broly faced 4 robots. Each of them faced 2 enemies. The score level of those robots ranged from 500 to 2,000 points. The robots were pretty powerful, and that's why Kale was transformed into a legendary Super Saiyan, but Broly is still fighting in base form. With some fighting time, they managed to win. Broly got 3,800 points, while Kale got 3,118 points. Hit was facing two opponents. One of them had a power level of 2,450 and the other of 3,000. The moment they were facing each other, but the next, the androids moved towards Hit. The assassin had already made his move with a time skip, and then both machines were destroyed. Hit now has 5,450 points. In addition to these fights, Team 4's warriors fought many others, and as they fought against androids of many different levels, they learned their average power level and chose the best, most suitable opponents for them. The other participants did the same thing, and learning the average power level of the androids, they used various types of strategies to accumulate points in the most convenient way possible. Jimizu, for example, decided that facing enemies that were too powerful could be problematic, so he decided that he would eliminate weaker enemies, making it a rule that he would not face androids worth more than 15 points. That way, Jimizu could defeat opponents quickly, and he used the instant transmission to move faster around the planet. Using the skill given by Daishinken, he would track enemy groups and go directly to them, quickly eliminating them and accumulating points. Universe 9's trio of wild warriors, Bergamo, Basil, and Lavender, decided to use a different strategy. They faced stronger androids, which were worth up to 5,000 points, but they did it using their good teamwork. Dispo raced across the planet, destroying every android he saw. The weaker ones he destroyed as he ran, without even needing to stop his movement, but sometimes he encountered more powerful ones that made him need to waste a few seconds or minutes fighting. Toppo and Jiren decided to use a different strategy. They decided to ignore all the weaker androids and go in search of the more powerful androids. The idea is to guarantee classification with a single fight. After some more time, Team 4's warriors encountered new enemies. This time they decided to risk facing slightly stronger enemies with the intention of getting a faster score. Frost was now fighting an android that was worth 1,520 points. The Universe 6's warrior chose this enemy with the score level because despite being considerably strong, he could still destroy that enemy without needing to use too much power and forms and greater expenditure of energy. Frost fought this android in the sky, and as they exchanged blows, the mortal landed many attacks on the machine. The android, to Frost's surprise, suddenly removed two blades from within its arms and attacked him. Frost, even taken by surprise by the attack, managed to dodge, but his face was slightly scratched by one of the blades. He smiles. He says that apparently this android has some tricks. He also likes to use tricks, but unfortunately, his poisons wouldn't work on this type of enemy. The android lunges again to attack Frost with the blades, but this time the mortal was ready, and so he fires lasers from his fingers. That split the android's blades, then counterattacked by knocking him away. After doing so, Frost, while accumulating a large amount of energy in his hand, says it's time to end that fight, and then he fires the energy at the robot. The attack was more than enough to destroy that enemy. But to Frost's surprise, the robot suddenly started releasing a great aura of energy, and his musculature grew. After this happened, he launched Frost's attack away, leaving the mortal absolutely shocked. Another strange thing is that suddenly the android's power level started to change. Seeing all this happen so suddenly, Frost asked, shocked, "What does this mean?" His score has increased from 1,520 to 1,850. After transforming and increasing its power, the android charges towards Frost at high speed and lands a strong punch on him. Frost, after receiving the attack, tries to counterattack, but his blow is held by the android, who retaliates by landing another attack that launches him away. In another place not so far away, there was a mountain, and at the top of that mountain, an android was sitting in a meditation position on top of a rock. Gohan and Piccolo approach. When they arrive, the android gets up. The two Universe 7 warriors face the android. They see the number of points he's worth, 8,215 points. Piccolo comments that to defeat this enemy individually, they would have to use a great amount of power, but if they fight together, they can do so without having to spend a lot of energy. Gohan agrees and then transforms into Super Saiyan 2. He says that if Piccolo fights by his side, this transformation alone is enough. Both fly at the same time towards the android and try a hit. The android remains frozen on the stone. It just forms a globe-shaped energy shield around itself. Upon hitting that shield, both mortals are electrocuted and move away. After that, the android charges at Gohan and lands an attack that knocks him away. After that, he charges at Piccolo and the two exchange blows. But Piccolo is at a disadvantage until the Namekian is hit by a blow that sends him crashing to the ground. Realizing that Gohan was coming at him again to try and attack, the enemy prepares to dodge, but Piccolo reaches out his arms and grabs the android's ankle, preventing him from moving, and then Gohan lands a strong blow on the android. After that, Piccolo, still with his arm outstretched and holding the opponent's ankle, throws him against the rocks, causing his body to destroy the stones. After that, Piccolo moves to Gohan's side and they both fire an energy attack together, causing a huge explosion in that place. Piccolo asks Gohan what he thinks. Gohan, with a serious expression, replies that it is certainly still far from over, and the android floats out of the smoke protected by its energy shield. An android is standing at the top of a large tree in the middle of a large forest, watching the forest from above. Who comes to him are Kaba and Cauliflower. Smiling, Cauliflower measures the android's point level. It's worth 10,000 points. Kaba is uncertain about that. Wasn't that enemy too strong for them? Cauliflower says yes individually, but if they fight together using all their power, surely they can win. But Kaba disapproves that strategy, asking whether it is wise to expend energy in this way. But Cauliflower doesn't care about his words and transforms into Super Saiyan 2. When she does, the android understands that they want to fight, so he rushes towards them. Kaba, seeing that there was no other option, transforms into Super Saiyan 2 as well, and they both head towards the android. They exchange blows at the same time, but the android has the upper hand, causing both Saiyans to back off. Cauliflower, seeing the power of the enemy, says, "Damn, I think I miscalculated a little." Kaba, while being grabbed by the android in the neck, asks with an ironic tone, "Do you really think so?" The android launches the boy against the girl, and they both collide and fall into the forest. Two androids were standing on a tree branch in the middle of the forest when Broly and Kale approached. Measuring the power of the androids, they saw that one of them was worth 20,000 points and the other was worth 50,000 points. Kale is a little unsure. They seem to be very strong. Broly tells them that he will face the strongest. Since fighting that man named Jiren, he has decided that he needs to improve his self-control so that he doesn't hurt others anymore. He feels that to do this, he needs to face these powerful opponents. Kale smiles. She says if he's going to try, she should try too. The two transform. Broly goes into Ikari form while Kale goes into Super Saiyan. The two advance towards the androids and attack them. The android block their attacks, and the impact is so great that it destroys many trees around them. Hit walks into a cave. Along the way, he meets many androids, all of which have a point level between 100 and 500. Hit says they're not what he wants, but getting some easy points wouldn't be a bad thing. Realizing the assassin's intentions to fight, the androids charge towards him, but in the next moment they're all destroyed. Hit, in a single time skip, eliminated them all, scoring more than 15,898 points. After doing so, he proceeds to a deeper region of the cave where he finds an android sitting, and the score for that android was 100,000 points. Knowing that Hit wanted to fight, the android gets up, but at the same moment he gets to his feet, the assassin is already close to him, striking a blow to the robot's chest. But to Hit's surprise, despite having a part of his chest dented, the android resists the attack and counterattacks, but he fails to land a blow on Hit, who uses time skip to distance himself. Hit says that apparently that fight will take a little longer than he imagined. On a rock situated in the center of a large lake, an android is standing looking at the sky. Suddenly, several pieces of other androids fall from the sky into the water. Vegeta was the one who did this from the sky as he faced the android. Smiling, the Prince of Saiyan says, "If I defeat you, I'll get 250,000 points, right? Well, it's the best way. I don't want to have to waste time with a lot of this rubbish." Vegeta transforms into Super Saiyan God, and then charges towards the android to land a punch on him. But when Vegeta tries to deliver the punch, the android simply disappears in front of him, and the pressure of the Saiyan's punch destroys the rock the robot was on, and opens a temporary hole in the lake. Then the android appears behind Vegeta, ready to land an attack on him, surprising the Saiyan Prince with his speed. But Vegeta immediately dodges and he transforms into Super Saiyan Blue. After that, the prince smiles. Now he realizes that the creature was really powerful. He could give him some fun. Very high in the sky above the clouds, an android floating while looking down. Then someone breaks through the clouds and comes face to face with him. It was Goku. Facing the android while smiling, he says, 300,000 points, huh? Not bad. Goku transforms into Super Saiyan Blue, then flies towards the android to start a battle. Frost fights a hard combat across the sky. He exchanges blows against an android, but he's put under heavy pressure by the machine, which has many advantages in the fight. When Frost started fighting that android, his score was 1,520 points, which by the average android power would be a fight where he wouldn't have so much trouble winning, and at the same time he wouldn't gain so few points. In fact, at the first, Frost was winning easily, but the android suddenly used a transformation, and he was now worth 1,850 points, which means that his power also increased and now surpassed Frost's power. As he is pressed into combat, Frost complains, "Damn that angel! Why didn't he warn that these machines could increase his powers?" Frost finally manages to land a hit on the android, but he didn't even move the attack. It retaliated with a much stronger blow to the warrior's abdomen, which spat a handful of blood. After that, the android holds his head with one hand, while in the other he makes a blade appear. His intention is to go through Frost's chest, but as he prepares the attack, Frost yells, "Damn you!" Frost suddenly unleashes a large amount of power, knocking the android away from him, and after doing so he gains a much more muscular form, a form similar to what Frieza used against Goku and Namek. Not satisfied with using this power, he says, "I didn't want to use this form, so as not to waste too much energy, but now that you forced me to do this, you'll pay." Frost charges at the android and lands a string of hits on him, but when he would land a stronger attack, the machine defends the attack and knocks him back with another attack. Apparently that fight wouldn't be so easy for Frost, even now using more power. Gohan and Piccolo exchange a large amount of blows against the android above the mountain. The android then faced was worth 8,000 points. If they used their maximum power, they could certainly defeat that android easily. But as their goal is to preserve energy, they decided to fight this enemy together, but without using their most powerful forms. So Piccolo fought in base form while Gohan fought in Super Saiyan 2. In a moment, Gohan leaves Piccolo exchanging blows against the machine, and moving to his back, prepares a strong punch. Piccolo, taking advantage of this, stretches both arms and wraps them around the android, trapping the android's body from shoulder to ankles, preventing its movement. But to their surprise, one of the android's eyes appears behind its head and fires a laser at it, hitting the Saiyan and pushing it away. And after that, the android makes his leg appear in his face and stretches it until he lands an attack on Piccolo's face, which frees him while he is pushed away. After doing this, the android makes its leg leave its face and return to its original position, just as the eye that was behind its head returns to its original position. Gohan returns to Piccolo's side and says, "It looks like he has the ability to move his own body parts around. What a weird ability." Piccolo adds, "Dealing with it will be a very difficult task, as we can expect an attack from him from almost any direction. Stay alert, Gohan. This fight is going to be tougher than we imagined." Above a large forest, Kaba and Caulifla faced a powerful android. Although they were fighting together, the two Saiyans were at a disadvantage against the machine. That android was worth 10,000 points, and facing him was Caulifla's idea, who made that decision without Kaba's approval. But she was probably already sorry, since even together, they were at a disadvantage against the robot. During the exchange of blows, the android dodges an attack from Kaba and lands a hit on them, and then blocks an attack from Caulifla and lands a hit on her. After that, both Saiyans charge at him, but the android fires an energy attack from each end, hitting both of them and causing them to fall into the forest, destroying a part of the environment. Caulifla returns to the sky, flying towards the android and attacks it with a string of blows. And although the android retreats to defend, it evades the attack with reasonable ease. Kaba, taking advantage of this, comes flying behind the android to try and attack. But when he gets close and is close to landing the blow, the android grows a tail similar to a scorpion's tail. And with its tail, he hits an attack on Kaba, which is launched again against the forest. After doing so, he wraps his tail around Caulifla's neck, suffocating her. Kaba returns again, trying to land an attack on the android so that he frees Caulifla. But when Kaba gets close, the android uses his tail to launch the girl at the boy. Kaba catches Caulifla in his arms, but then both are hit by an android's energy blast, and then both return to the ground, destroying another part of the forest. In another forest region, Kale and Brawly faced two androids. Kale faced an android worth 20,000 points, while Brawly faced an android worth 50,000 points. The Saiyan woman was transformed into a legendary Super Saiyan, while the Saiyan man was in Ikari form. Both had an even fight with the androids. Kale is exchanging blows with one of the androids, but she receives an attack, and after being destabilized by the attack, she receives many more. At one point, she manages to defend one of the attacks. Then she counters with a sequence of blows that also destabilizes him. The android again manages to balance the fight, and both return to exchange blows evenly. Nearby, Brawly and the other android were also exchanging blows, but their fight was even more violent. They clash fists, and only the shock pressure of their attacks colliding creates an impact wave that destroys many trees in the forest below. Brawly lands a hard punch on the android, but then the android also lands a hard punch on Brawly. And then they clash fists again, but this time, the impact makes them both pull away, and they both at the same time fire a huge energy wave. The attacks collide and create a huge explosion across the area, causing great destruction. Inside a large cave, Hit and an android face each other. That android was worth 100,000 points, and from the first few moves during the fight against him, Hit already knew that this fight would be a big challenge. The android charges at the assassin, but before receiving the machine's attack, Hit uses the time skip to attack him first with a string of super fast attacks. After receiving the blows from the Universe 6 fighter, the android again tries to attack him, but Hit again uses the time skip, this time going to the android's back to attempt a killing blow. But this time something different happens. The android simply disappears from his front and appears behind him, hitting the assassin so hard that he goes through all the stones in the cave and stops only in the sky. After receiving the attack, Hit wonders what happened. Was that a teleport? The android, already out of the cave, comes flying towards Hit to attack. The assassin again uses the time skip to attack, but again, the android uses the teleport to dodge and lands a hit on him. After receiving this attack, Hit recognizes that his opponent also has good skills. That's going to be a tough fight. Above a large lake, Vegeta and the android he faced were exchanging blows, an android that was worth 250,000 points. Vegeta, transformed into Super Saiyan Blue, fights the android evenly, both dodging, defending, and landing attacks on each other. Vegeta, while exchanging blows with the machine, says that he is too good for an old can, but he will never be good enough to defeat the great prince of the Saiyans. Vegeta lands a blow that knocks the android away, but he stretches out his arms, grabbing Vegeta's shoulders, and returns to him with a strong headbutt that knocks the Saiyan away. He doesn't let this last blow go unpunished, and fires a wave of energy at the android, which is carried away, and explodes along with Vegeta's energy into a mountain that surrounds the lake. Vegeta smiles as he says he might think he's smart, but he's just a stupid machine. But then the man notices something strange. On his shoulders are small robots, which were surely implanted the moment the android touched him, and these small robots self-destruct, causing a huge explosion. After the explosion, he is reasonably injured, but very angry, saying that that idiot robot will pay for it. The android, already recovered from the Saiyan's last attack, returns to continue the fight, and Vegeta also flies towards him to continue. Goku and an android are fighting above the clouds. The machine that Goku faces will give him 300,000 points if defeated. Both fight in balance, but Goku has a slight advantage, managing to hit a few more attacks on the android. But suddenly the machine starts to have the upper hand, managing to dodge and block the Saiyan's blows and counterattack. As he fights, Goku notices that it looks like this android is simply anticipating his attacks. And not only that, the android's movements have become similar to his movements. The android lands an attack on Goku that knocks him away, and after that goes after him to continue the attacks. Goku reacts by launching a Kamehameha at him. The android dodges, and to the Saiyan's surprise, also launches a Kamehameha, which Goku also dodges. After that, Goku realizes that the android is actually copying his techniques, and apparently he can do that with physical attacks and also energy attacks. Realizing this, the mortal reflects within himself. It seems that seeing my techniques and movements once is enough for him to understand everything and learn how to use them. He not only uses my fighting style against me, but he also learns to deal with my style. I need to be very careful how I fight him, because every wasted move will help him improve during the fight. The android tries to pierce Frost with its blades, while the Universe 6 mortal dodges with difficulty, and it is possible to see that despite the effort to dodge the attacks, he has already been hit a few times. As there are some cuts on his body, giving up a melee fight, Frost backs away from the android and fires many energy lasers at him, but the machine, using the blades, reflects Frost's attacks, causing the lasers to come back to him, and Frost has to dodge to not be hit by his own attacks. Seeing that kind of attack did not work, Frost launches a wave of energy at the opponent, but the android, pointing his arm in his direction, shoots the blade from his arm as if it were an arrow, and the blade travels through the sky in towards Frost's energy attack and pierces the energy in half, while continuing towards the warrior, who needs to dodge to avoid being pierced by the blade. But when Frost dodges the attack, the android appears behind him, and with a blade that remains in his arm, slashes through Frost from his back to his chest, causing him great pain. In an unexpected move, Frost grabs the android's blade in his chest with one hand, holding him back. With this smile on his face, the Universe 6 mortal says, "You sure don't know it, but my body is very peculiar, and unless you don't completely destroy me, you probably won't kill me. A perforation to me is meaningless. But can you say the same thing?" Frost places a hand on his abdomen and fires a focused energy attack that goes through his own body, also through the body of the android behind him. After this happens, the machine short-circuits and then explodes. Frost receives a blast on his back and falls from the sky. He lands in an open field and is reasonably injured. Looking at the score in his vision, Frost sees that his total score, taking into account what he just received from the android, is already 62,368. Seeing this, he says to himself, "Well, I think that's enough for me to start taking it easy on the next opponents." Above the mountains, Gohan and Piccolo continue their fight against the android. Piccolo prepares a punch, but before he can reach the android with his punch, he is intercepted by a kick from the machine, which, to the surprise of the Namekian, made his leg appear in his own rib. Gohan takes advantage of the android's distraction with Piccolo and punches him in the face, but the machine makes one hand appear in the middle of the face and holds the Saiyan's hand, and then with the other hand shoots a wave of energy at his abdomen, pushing Gohan away. Piccolo advances against the android again to strike him, but the machine stretches its arm towards the Namekian and punches him in the abdomen, preventing the Universe 7 warrior's advance. But that's what Piccolo wanted, to hold the enemy's arm with his hands, and launches a wave of concentrated energy from his mouth, aiming at the robot's head. But in a curious move, the android retracts its head, letting the attack pass straight through, and then it makes its head appear on its own chest, and also launches a wave of energy at Piccolo, who is hit full by the attack and is launched against him. The mountain rocks. After taking Piccolo down, the machine fires a huge wave of energy at him, a very powerful attack that would certainly seriously injure the Namekian if Gohan didn't put himself in front of his companion, forming a ki shield. And after Gohan does that, Piccolo launches a Masenko at the shield, pushing it towards the android, starting a power struggle that has Gohan's shield as its center. Piccolo and Gohan win the contest, taking the android's attack back to him, and in order not to be destroyed by his own attack, combines the two mortals' attacks. The android simply splits his own body. One half goes to one side and the other half to the other side, letting the energy pass between them. This surprises Gohan and Piccolo, who complain that this thing always has a trick to escape them. But the surprise of the two doesn't stop there, since when the android's body is divided, it doesn't return to normal. On the contrary, each of the halves become an android. That is, now there are two similar enemies. Seeing the score of both androids, Gohan and Piccolo see that they have the same power as the first. This means that there are now two opponents with the same power level as the one they faced before. Faced with this situation, they decide that now they can no longer maintain the tactic of fighting together using little power. Now they have to face the enemies individually, and for that they need more power. Piccolo uses his potential unleashed form, and Gohan uses his ultimate form. Now a one-on-one battle between Gohan and Piccolo and the androids will begin. Kaba and Caulifla are lying in a crater in the middle of the forest. For sure, they open the crater with their own bodies, thrown by the enemy. Both are badly injured and they get up with difficulty. Caulifla, very angry, says that this android is humiliating them. Even though they tried many times, many times, they only managed landing a few hits on him, and their attacks had almost no effect. This is a catastrophe, and it's all Kaba's fault, who is useless. But Kaba replies that he said it was not a good idea to face the android, but she didn't listen to him. She was the one who put them in trouble in the first place. Caulifla lowers her head. She's really frustrated. Since the Tournament of Power, she has trained a lot. But despite her efforts, she can't reach Super Saiyan 3. She's sure that if she reached Super Saiyan 3, she could take the enemy down in 1 second. Kaba, with a comforting smile on his face, says that they Saiyans can always push their limits when facing a powerful enemy. They must keep fighting, and together they will become stronger. Caulifla smiles, saying that she needs to fall a lot to accept motivation from an idiot like him. She doesn't need to hear that. She knows they must keep fighting. Looking at the sky, they notice the android flying down toward them. And then the two again concentrate energy, emanating the electric and flaming aura of Super Saiyan 2. But this time, both are even more motivated. Kale and her opponent continue an intense exchange of extremely fast and powerful blows. The girl realizes that unlike how it was at the beginning of the fight, where the two were in complete balance, she is now at a disadvantage, and she wonders if that android was getting stronger over time. After reflecting for a bit, she realizes that no, he's not getting stronger. She deduces that while she is getting more and more tired of combat, the android seems to keep the same level as when they started, and that's because that machine never gets tired. Because of this, he is starting to gain the upper hand against her. Kale takes a series of hits from the android, but when that happens, the Saiyan becomes enraged, and then counters with a much stronger blow, which sends the machine flying. With a smile on his face, Kale says that even though he doesn't lose energy during battle, and so gives the feeling that he's getting stronger, she's different. As a Saiyan, she can actually become stronger during battle. That is, while his power increase is just an illusion, her power increase is very real. Kale charges at the android with a speed much higher than what she was using during the fight so far. And this surprises the android, who has his chest pierced by the Saiyan girl's fist. Kale removes her arm from the android's body, and he falls from the sky. Nearby, Broly also fights, but unlike Kale, the android isn't able to gain an advantage over time. That's because Broly, while fighting, is adapting faster and faster to the android's fighting style, and his power is also growing. That is, even though the android has infinite energy, Broly is gaining more and more advantage as the fight goes on. During the exchange of blows, the android is at a total disadvantage and receives many attacks from Broly, and seeing that he can no longer maintain a hand-to-hand fight against the Saiyan of Universe 7, the creature moves away from him and, accumulating a large amount of energy, fires an immense wave of ki at him. Broly responds in the same way, also firing an immense wave of ki at the machine, so both attacks violently collide. In a few seconds of dispute, it's already clear which attack is the strongest, as Broly's energy fiercely advances against the android's energy, which at the last moment tries to deflect, but half of his body is completely destroyed by the warrior's attack. Seeing that the android no longer has half of his body, Broly says that he should give up at once. He won't be able to fight anymore. But the Saiyan was very wrong. The android starts to concentrate energy, and the other android that had been defeated by Kale seems to be sucked by him. Both collide their bodies, and at the moment of collision the bodies seem to fuse, and at that moment they begin to emanate an absurd amount of energy, which surprises both Broly and Kale. Before long, a new android appears. This one is much bigger and more muscular. Broly and Kale see that the score this android is now worth is 350,000. And if before Kale's opponent was worth 20,000 and Broly's opponent was worth 50,000, this means that this fusion added their power together and multiplied it 5 times. As they face the opponent, Broly and Kale are worried that fight is going to be much harder than they could have imagined. Hit and the android he was fighting fought a super fast battle across the sky. Universe 6's assassin constantly uses his time skip to dodge the android's blows and counterattack, while the android uses his teleport-like ability to also evade Hit's attacks and counterattack. In this way, both fought a fight where no one hits anyone, a speed contest where whoever made a mistake first can be seriously hurt. After so many failed attempts by both of them, the android finally manages to land a hit on the mortal, but that one was just a clone, a residue of the assassin in space-time, and the real hit appears behind the android to land a hit. But the machine probably already anticipated this move, causing several electrical wires to come out of its back, which get tangled up in Hit's body and severely electrocutes the man. To escape the wires, Hit releases a large amount of energy at once, breaking the wires and getting free. His next move is to step away from the enemy to think for a while. Hit realizes that his enemy had more tricks than teleportation. He needs to be very careful when dealing with him. Before the mortal can even think of what to do, the robot charges at him with a string of attacks. Hit dodges all of the attacks and blows and counterattacks, but when he counterattacks, the robot defends with his arm. And when Hit's hand collides with his arm, he releases some wires to trap Hit's arm and electrocutes him. But the man quickly backs away, narrowly escaping a new electrical discharge. But when Hit walks away, the android teleports to his back and attempts a kick. Hit blocks the kick, but the enemy releases wires from his leg to electrocute the assassin, who again needs to move away quickly to avoid being electrocuted. Hit is worried. He can't even touch the enemy to attack or defend himself. Now, could he win this fight? He needs to think of a strategy, and fast, as he can't escape his opponent forever. But still not tired of surprising the Universe 6 warrior, the android makes a breath towards him, releasing a strong current of frozen air. He quickly dodges, but one of his arms ends up being hit by the icy air current and is frozen in the same second. Looking at that crust of ice formed on his arm, Hit realizes he won't be able to get rid of it that easily. In addition to having the perfect ability to evade Hit's attack and also to defend and attack, apparently the enemy also had the solution in case he kept away and retreating. What to do now? Vegeta also fought hard against his opponent, both exchanging intense blows. In a moment their fists clash, and when this happens, the little explosive robots come out of the android's arm and stick to Vegeta's arm. After that, the android walks away. Vegeta immediately releases a large amount of ki into his arm, knocking the small robots away with the impact of his energy, but still the robot explodes around him, dealing massive damage to the Saiyan. After being hit by these multiple explosions, Vegeta is very stunned and doesn't see the android coming over him. The Saiyan warrior is hit by a top-down blow that launches him into the lake below them. When Vegeta falls into the lake, the android prepares a super energy attack and launches it into the lake. The energy sinks into the water, and then a huge explosion occurs at that location, leaving only a dry crater where that larger lake once existed. At the bottom of that crater was Vegeta, fallen and with many injuries. But despite his injuries, the Saiyan warrior gets up without much difficulty. In fact, Vegeta was feeling his pride much more than his body. He couldn't accept that a stupid robot was giving so much trouble to an elite warrior like him. The hardest thing in that fight wasn't because of the android's power level, because in fact he was matched to the machine in that form. The problem is these annoying robot tricks. He has to think of a way not to get caught up in these stupid tricks anymore. But Vegeta's thoughts are interrupted when several small explosive robots start appearing from the ground like a bunch of worms. The robot implanted these explosives there, completely surrounding the Saiyan. The android is watching the crater. Vegeta was in from the sky, and then a gigantic explosion occurs in that place. All the explosives exploded at once, but the fight isn't over yet. Vegeta appears with an instant transmission behind the android. The Saiyan Prince is furious. He hates using that technique. He says he's going to defeat this pile of junk once and for all, but he's going to do it without increasing his powers. He's not going to let a stupid robot beat the great prince of the Saiyans in combat strategy. He's always been hailed as a great fighting genius, and he won't let a mediocre machine be better than him at this. Goku also fighting a hard combat. He and the android fight intensely, but the problem is that the more they fight, the more the enemy adapts to Goku's fighting style, copying all his moves. The enemy simply figured out how to parry and dodge all of Goku's punches and kicks. He learned the Saiyan fighting style so well that now he has the ability to even predict what Goku would do. And no matter how hard the protagonist tries, it can't surprise the opponent with its movements. Goku is attacked many times by the android and he needs to move away, so he doesn't receive more attacks. As Goku walks away, the robot launches a Kamehameha at him. Goku responds by launching a Kienzan at the technique, and the slashing disc cuts the energy wave in half and heads towards the android, who escapes. But then the android dodges. Goku manipulates the disc to return to the opponent, and seeing the disc return to him, the android also copies the Kienzan, launching his own disc at Goku's disc. When the two Kienzans collide, they destroy each other. But what the android didn't expect is that there was a second disc underneath the one that was destroyed. Goku threw both discs together so that the second one wouldn't be noticed. This second disc passes through the android, cutting off one of his arms. Not satisfied with making a single cut, Goku manipulates the disc to return once more to the android, who uses his other arm to create another disc and launches it at Goku's attack. When the attacks collide, it explodes. But actually, this was the tactic of the Saiyan, who after being hidden from the android's line of sight by the smoke of the attack that collided between them, uses instant transmission and goes to the back of the machine, already with a Kamehameha prepared, and using the Kaioken 10 times, increased with Super Saiyan Blue. While surprising the robot, Goku shouts to the enemy, "Copy that! Kamehameha!" Goku fires a gigantic wave of energy that completely engulfs and shatters the android. When the energy is dissipated, there is nothing else in front of him. Goku smiles. Now his score was 335,000 points. Vegeta lands many blows on the android, carrying him through the sky while attacking him incessantly, until in a moment, one of these small explosive robots comes out of the android and jumps towards Vegeta's face. But the Saiyan immediately reacts by slapping the little robot, which explodes away from them. But that wasn't the only explosive that the android released. In fact, it makes several dozen small explosives come out of its body and jump towards Vegeta, who needs to move away to escape. But unfortunately for the Saiyan of Universe 7, the android can manipulate the robots, guiding them towards the Saiyan, who needs to fly away. Seeing the micro-robots coming towards him as if they were a swarm of bees, Vegeta fires ki balls at them. And as soon as the attacks hit the robots, they explode in large numbers. But there were too many of them, coming like insects towards him. Vegeta continues to run away, but in a moment, he is surrounded by explosives which fly towards him and stick to his body. But when that happens, Vegeta smiles and then he teleports, getting on the android's back and hugging him. Doing so, the Prince of the Saiyans smiles as he says, "How was tasting your own trick?" A huge explosion happens, destroying a huge area around it. After this huge explosion, all that is left in that region is rubble. But from the middle of a pile of rubble on the ground comes Vegeta, who is protected by an aura of energy. Despite that explosion, it is possible to see that Vegeta didn't receive much damage, as there are no considerable injuries on his body. At least no more than the ones he already had before the explosion. A second before the explosion happened, he released a concentrated amount of ki from his body, putting a protective layer of energy between his body and the small robots that were attached on him. So he took minimal damage from the explosions, unlike the android who took all the massive damage from the explosions and was completely destroyed. It was a risky strategy, but in the end it worked. Of course, the fact that he had to use instant transmission again in a battle bothered him a lot, but it would be worse if he was defeated by the stupid robot. Vegeta sees his score, which is now 301,000. He smiles. He's sure he's going to be the highest scoring warrior in this game. Hit from a distance escapes the wave of coal thrown by the android. Universe 6's assassin is in a bad spot as fighting that android up close is very tricky, but so is keeping distance. And to make things worse, one of his arms is frozen. That situation makes Hit a little angry. That fight is already going on much longer than he thought. He didn't want to use too much energy in that fight, so he let it all happen. Sticking to the strategy could lead to his defeat. Hit stops running and concentrates a lot of energy, showing that he will appeal to a much more direct and raw combat. The assassin flies towards the android, which launches several freezing waves at him. Hit doesn't stop. He keeps advancing while dodging attacks. The android changes strategy and makes several electrical wires emerge from his hands, launching them towards Hit, who is not intimidated even for a moment, and continues his advance while dodging the wires passing between them. But when Hit gets close enough to attack, the android controls the wires using telekinetic force, causing all the wires to spin around Hit. The assassin reaches out to land a punch to the enemy's chest, but the android causes the wires around Hit to close the way, trapping the assassin and severely electrocuting him. Hit has his flight stopped when he's only a few meters from the android, and for a few meters, his outstretched arm to punch the robot couldn't hit him. But to the robot's surprise, even with Hit's hand not hitting him, the android's chest is somehow crossed, as if he received a direct and concentrated attack in that region. After this happens, the electricity in the wires stops, and the wires fall apart just as the assassin's frozen arm returns to normal. Hit smiles and says, "You must be wondering how I managed to hit you, right? Well, I used my time jump. But instead of moving my body through time, I moved my energy in a super focused attack directly on your chest. I bet when you saw me concentrating power like that, you could only expect a direct melee attack from me, right? Well, that was the intention. Your mistake was focusing too much on just my body." With his body going into a severe short circuit, the android explodes. Hit sees his current score of 133,840 points. He thinks that's a good number. Broly and Kale faces the android that is the result of the fusion of the two androids they faced before. The android emanates a great amount of energy, which makes both Saiyans worried. Despite everything, Broly and Kale charge forward to attack the android, who also charges at them. An intense exchange of blows begin, but despite fighting together, the Saiyans are cornered. Seeing that the hand-to-hand fight won't work, Broly and Kale walk away at the same time and together launch a powerful energy wave at the enemy, which forms a large energy globe in front of him. The energy globe in front of the android stops the Saiyans' attacks. Then the android launches the globe back at them. Broly and Kale try to hold off the attack, but they can't, and a huge explosion ensues. The two Saiyans fall to the ground. Broly manages to get up. He has clearly been reasonably injured, but Kale is much worse. She has lost her transformation and consciousness. Seeing his friend injured, Broly is filled with rage and begins to emanate a large amount of ki as his pupils begin to dilate. But suddenly, he remembers the moments of the training between him and Vegeta on the planet of Beerus. Training whose objective was precisely to control his powers. Then he remembers when he was about to lose control and Kale helped him get back to normal. After that, he remembers the fight against Jiren, where he lost control. But he has some memories of the Universe 11 warrior saying some things about controlling his own powers. And finally, he remembers when he lost control because of Derkori's tricks and hurt his companions. Strengthened by all these memories and learnings, Brawly begins to exert great strength and concentration to control himself. And as a result of this effort, his pupils return to their place. But he is transformed into a Super Saiyan. He was finally able to control this transformation. Brawly looks down at his hands, surprised that so much power is coursing through his body, and he can control it. He looks at the enemy with a serious expression and advances towards him. The android launches several energy balls at the Saiyan, who, putting his arms in front of his face, goes ahead against the attacks, supporting the various explosions until he reaches the enemy with a sequence of blows that stuns the android. With the enemy already stunned, Brawly forms a ki ball in each hand and slams it with both hands, together crushing the ki attacks against both sides of the android's face, causing an explosion that leaves the robot even more stunned. He continues the sequence of attacks by opening his mouth, while firing a large energy wave also at the android's face. At the end of his last attack, the machine's head is completely cracked, and to finish his sequence, Brawly concentrates energy in one of his hands and lands a strong punch in the middle of the enemy's face, releasing all this large amount of energy at once. After that, the android's head is gone, and the machine falls lifeless from the sky. Brawly's score changes in his view to 400,000 points. He reverts to base form and goes to Kale, who is still down. He takes the girl in his arms, but then she wakes up. Glad to see her, Brawly smiles, and she, realizing they've been victorious, does the same. Kaba and Caulifla, fighting together and with incredible synchronization, put pressure on the android, causing the robot to retreat through the sky, while trying to defend and dodge their attacks. They realize that throughout this difficult fight they're having against the android, they've managed to improve in the fight, and they've not only improved individually, but as a team as well. The two hit a double kick at the robot, knocking the machine away. As they gain space, they concentrate a large amount of power and unleash a large double energy wave at the enemy. The android also responds by launching an energy attack at them, and both attacks collide, but the android's energy has every disadvantage, and the machine quickly loses the contest. Having an entire half of its body destroyed by the Saiyan's attack, Kaba and Caulifla celebrate, but their happiness is short-lived as the robot rebuilds his lost body part. But rebuilding the android's body isn't the only surprise that Universe 6's warriors have. They realize that after the android rebuilds his body, his score has increased from 10,000 points to 12,000 points, which means his power level also increased. Before Kaba and Caulifla manage to assimilate the whole situation, the android launches itself towards them with such great speed that they can only perceive the approach when the enemy is already hitting Caulifla with a strong punch that launches her very far, making the Saiyan girl crashing hard against the rocks of a mountain far away. Kaba advances towards him and attempts an attack, but the enemy blocks the Saiyan's attack and counterattacks with a blow that launches him into the forest. The android concentrates a large amount of energy and launches it against that region, destroying a huge part of the forest below it. Caulifla emerges from the midst of the rocks she hit, screams for Kaba, fearing that the attack has killed him. She tries to sense her companion's ki, but she can't. The girl fills with fury and releases an immense amount of energy, making the entire region tremble. A globe of energy surrounds the girl, hiding her, and when the globe of energy falls apart, Caulifla is transformed into a Super Saiyan 3. Looking at her own hands, Caulifla is amazed at her own power. She never imagined feeling so much energy going through her body at once, but she also notices that her energy is leaving so fast, she needs to be quick. Looking at the android with a look full of fury, Caulifla says that he will regret what he did to Kaba. She flies towards the android and punishes the enemy with a great string of blows. The android receives all the girl's blows without even being able to react. But after so many attacks, the android finally reacts by trying to hit an attack with its tail on the Saiyan. But Caulifla grabs the tail and launches the android into the sky, and after concentrating a large amount of energy, launches an incredibly powerful attack, which when it hits the android is completely destroyed. After destroying the enemy, Caulifla reverts back to her base form. She closes her eyes, sad, but then Kaba appears behind her, congratulating his companion for finally reaching Super Saiyan 3. Seeing that Kaba was alive, Caulifla is absolutely shocked, and asks what happened. Wasn't he dead? Kaba explains that no. At the last moment, before receiving the android's attack, he created an energy shield to protect himself. As the attack was more powerful, it destroyed the shield and the impact made him faint for a short time, but he woke up in time to see the end of the fight. Caulifla hits Kaba, saying he's an idiot for worrying her like that. With a comical expression of pain, Kaba apologizes. He had no intention of causing trouble. Seeing her score after defeating the android, Caulifla realizes she's reached 90,000 points and asks Kaba's score. He has 86,520 points. The girl brags, saying she's winning. This makes the boy surprised. He didn't know it was a competition. Gohan and Piccolo fight the two twin androids. Piccolo uses his unleashed potential form, and Gohan uses the ultimate form. And unlike when Gohan and Piccolo fought together against the android that was one, now the machines had the disadvantage in the fight. The power level of the two androids is the same as the first android, as is the same number of points, which is 8,000. But when the android was just one, Gohan and Piccolo fought using lesser forms, as they believed they could win using fewer powers if they fought together. Because of this, they were inferior to the power of the android individually. But after the android split his body, they were forced to face two enemies with the same power level. They had to use more powerful forms to not be defeated. And now the androids are at a disadvantage. Gohan, while exchanging blows with the android, presses him, causing the machine to recoil. It doesn't take long for the Saiyan to start hitting attacks, punishing the enemy with many blows. As he does so with a smile on his face, the Universe 7 warrior says that now the power difference between them is too great. No matter what kind of trick he wants to use, he will never win this fight. The android tries to land a punch on Gohan, but he holds the blow with only one hand. And with the other hand, he lands a punch that pierces the robot's abdomen, and he finishes passing through the machine's body with a wave of energy fired by the hand that was inside the creature. After receiving this attack, the android starts to short-circuit, and then Gohan launches it into the air, and the machine explodes. After this victory, Gohan sees in his vision his new score of 112,000 points. As he returns to base form, the Saiyan smiles. The score wasn't bad at all. Looking to the side, Gohan sees Piccolo's fight against the other half of the android in the distance. Piccolo and the android exchange blows intensely, and despite having a bit of an advantage against the enemy, Piccolo's advantage isn't as great as the one that Gohan had against his enemy. Piccolo lands a harder blow on the android that knocks him away, and in doing so, the Namekian fires many ki balls surrounding the android with its attacks. Piccolo closes his arms, and all the attacks go towards the android at once, creating a huge explosion. When the smoke created by the explosion clears, it can be seen that the android has shielded itself from those multiple attacks by creating a protective globe of energy around it. But this globe is very cracked. Piccolo, already preparing his second attack, the Makan Tosapo, smiles, saying that he already expected the android to do that. Piccolo fires the Makan Tosapo in the direction of the enemy. The energy laser hits one of the cracks in the shield and goes through both the energy shield and the android's body, which after receiving the attack, explodes. When the android is defeated, Piccolo can see his current score, which is 98,986 points. As he returns to base form, he smiles satisfied. Gohan approaches his friend, saying that they've now got a lot of points. Piccolo agrees, but they still can't relax as they don't know how the others score. But they can at least afford to face slightly less challenging enemies now to save energy. After all these battles, Team 4's warriors gather in the sky. All of them speak for the score that each one has made so far. Frost scored 62,368 points, Kaba scored 86,520 points, Caulifla scored 90,000 points, Piccolo scored 98,986 points, Gohan scored 112,000 points, Kale scored 114,285 points, Hit scored 133,840 points, Vegeta scored 301,000 points, Goku scored 335,000 points, and Broly scored 400,000 points. Vegeta, after discovering that he was only third in the group scorecard, becomes very angry, telling Broly and Goku that he won't let them beat him like this. Goku is also a little upset. He would like to be number 1 too. But Broly, unlike the other two, doesn't care about that. In fact, he even thinks he scored enough, and he's no longer looking for stronger androids to fight. The other team members also think this way. From now on, they will only look for weaker androids to score more easily. Vegeta says that they are all idiots who settle for little, but not him. He will be the one who scores the most points at this stage of the tournament. Goku disagrees and says it will be he who scores the most points. Looking at the information present in their view, they both see that 8 minutes have passed since the start of the second stage of the tournament, which means that there are still 52 minutes left to play. They have plenty of time to increase their score. Goku realizes that even though he's been facing powerful enemies, especially his latest opponent, he still hasn't faced the androids worth the maximum score, and this is a fight he surely wants to have. But not only does Goku want to have this fight, Vegeta does too. With that in mind, the two rivals fly away looking for even more powerful enemies to score as many points as they can. Even after facing extremely difficult battles, Goku and Vegeta are not satisfied with the accumulated points and set out in search of even more powerful enemies. Meanwhile, the other participants are also looking for their own ways to score as much as possible. Who will be the one who will qualify for the next stage of the Tournament of Power? Who will be the one who will get the most points? And what challenges will await them among these powerful machines?